The Affliction Warlock. I keep hearing this thing was doing crap. All of Warlock specs are crap. That's all I kept hearing, and I really don't see it. I've already put out the Demonology Warlock. I enjoyed the hell out of it, so I had to bump up Affliction and Destruction just to see where this was at. And so far, with Affliction here, I don't see any problems. There's not a whole lot of specs that I would end up taking the time to end up pulling this much stuff in one single pull and not continue going or dying right off the bat. Not at a 680 item level. So where are we sitting? What's the difference with this spec? How's it playing out? Where's the gameplay? Is Affliction still there? Hell yeah, they're still the kings of multi-dotting. And with that, let's move on to the actual abilities. So here we are looking at the abilities of the Affliction Warlock. The very first one that pops up is going to be Agony. It inflicts a very good amount of shadow damage over 18 seconds. Mind you, that number is a little higher than normal because I do have a talent that increases the amount of damage it's going to do because it's going to ramp to about double its normal damage. Really nice ability, and it works the same as on live. Damage starts low and increases over the duration. Normally it'll stack to 10. I have it to where it stacks to 20. Plays out nice. And this is actually where the gameplay gets a little bit different. Agony is now your soul shard generator instead of corruption. Works out very nice since this is going to be one of your main damaging abilities. Instead of having to make sure that you've got corruption and agony on everything, now you can basically spend most of your time making sure that agony is priority. Very nice piece. Banish is still here. Basically, this is going to be your CC on demons, aberrations, and elementals. And it prevents any action for 1 second, or sorry, for 30 seconds with limit of 1 target. Casting Banish again on the target will cancel the effect, so it works out pretty nice in that factor. Command Demon, same thing as it usually does, guys. Depending on what you have out, it's going to depend on what ability it does. Imp's going to Cauterize Master, Voidwalker is going to cast Suffering, Succubus Whiplash, as you can see up there. Real nice piece. Now, Corruption, the main thing on this with Corruption, it's going to be instant, corrupts the target, and it does shadow damage over time. It's just a basic dot now. Nothing different. Second dot. Number 1, number 2, and we actually have a third that we can get into in talents, and we'll go over that later. Well, 4. I should say we do have a third already, and that's going to be our main nuke. We'll go over that in a second. Create Hellstone still here. You can still create a Hellstone to heal from, and the Soul Well. You still got your Party Well here. Dark Pack's a talent. We'll go after that later. And by the way, Soul Well, for those of you that don't know, it actually makes it to where anybody can click on this and create a Hellstone instead of you having to make them all at the same time. Demonic Gateway, still have it. It's going to be your portal. And you can throw it out there, and each player can use the Demonic Gateway once per 1.5 minutes. Ouch. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 minutes on live, but they've really kind of taken their time with slowly nerfing this one into the ground over its course of action. And unfortunately, that's what we've got. Drain Life, it's now your filler spell. There's no more Malefic's Grasp anymore. There's no more Drain Soul unless you spec into it. Now it's just Drain Life. Over the course of time, this channeled ability has finally reverted back to where it has been. Except instead of using Shadow Bolt like back in the BC days, you're going to use Drain Life, which you really don't end up using all that often anyways, depending on the fight. You might use it here or there, but it's not going to be a main damaging source. You do have ways of improving this and making it to where it turns into another ability, and we'll go over that later. That'll do more damage but less healing. Done. Really didn't care for that too much, just for the simple fact that, hey, I like seeing that extra healing on me. It makes it to where I'm not expendable to the healer. It makes it to where I can actually take care of myself, and I've got a bit more self-sustain than having to rely on somebody else keeping my ass alive. This played out very nice in the open world, as I would pull everything in like a 40-yard range. If I could dot it, it was coming to me. Didn't give a fuck. Pardon my French, that's just the way it went. Enslaved Demon, Does exactly what it says, enslaves the target demon up to level 103, which is going to be 2 levels above you, forcing it to do your bidding for 5 minutes. Eye of Kilrog, same thing as you've always seen. It's going to turn the little eye out there, and you can basically run around wherever the hell you want with it to see some vision. Nothing too great out of that one unless you're scouting new raid content or something. You have no idea and you want to get a little bit of an eye of what's going on. Fear works the same. Strike fear in the enemy, disorienting for 20 seconds. Damage may cancel this effect, limit 1. Grimoire of Service is a talent. We'll worry about that later. Health Funnel. This is just going to allow you to take some of your health and heal up your pet. Life Tap. Same thing as on live. Restores 30% of your maximum mana at a cost of 10% of your maximum health. Really, it seems null and void at this point right now. Reap Souls, your artifact ability, and this thing is cool as shit. They have done a lot of work to make this better. They started off where this thing had souls that would end up floating out, and you'd have to kill them to get the buff, and yada yada. They actually made it an activated ability. But what is it going to do? Well, it's got a counter, and it'll actually count up to, I want to say it's 12 marks, maybe less. I think it's 12. Anyways, you'll consume all tormented souls collected by Othalash, increasing your damage by 10% and doubling the effect of all Othalash's other traits for 5 seconds per soul consumed. So you're going to get 10% increased damage, and then you're also going to, all your other trait abilities that are on this, that you've got unlocked, are going to be increased, alright, double the effect for the next 5 seconds per soul consumed. So if you end up doing 12, that is 1 minute. Alright, you got this thing maxed 1 minute of 10% increased damage and double all your other effects. This unleashes hell. This is an amazing, amazing ability, and I enjoyed the hell out of playing with this, especially the more I pulled and the more I killed, the more damage I was doing anyway. So I was a non-stop chain pulling monster like back in the day. Othalash collects tormented souls from each target you kill and occasionally escape souls to it previously collected. So you'll just randomly see this thing get a charge for no reason. And I don't know if it's got an internal cooldown or what's going on, but it seemed like it was fairly on track whenever I was in an actual group. But this plays out very nicely, and you can build this up and pool it to where you want to end up actually doing a shit ton of extra damage. Ritual of Summoning, same thing as it's always been. Basically, this is going to drop your demon door down so you can port people in. Seed of Corruption, big change on this one. Not a whole hell of a lot, but a big change. Embeds a demon seed on an enemy target, and it will explode after 1 point, or embeds a demon seed in the enemy target that will explode after 15 seconds, dealing 11,900. It doesn't do a lot of damage itself to all enemies within 10 yards and applying corruption to them. The seed will detonate early if target basically takes 30,000 shadow damage from your spells. So with this thing being cast out, it looks exactly the same when it goes out. There you go. And then whenever it takes damage from you, it's going to blow up. But the nice addition, it's automatically by itself going to spread this corruption everywhere. And there you go. You see it just spread to everything that's here. And that helps out a ton. Really, that's where you're looking at for the extra damage, is getting that corruption out on everything, because that's going to be where you get all your excess damage. They do have a talent that makes this thing really nice at the cost of a soul shard, and we'll go over that in a few. Siphon Life, dot number 4. It's actually a talent, so we'll go over that in the talent section. Same thing with Soul Effigy. Soulstone, same thing as it's always been, guys. This is going to be a usable battle res. You can either pre-cast it on someone you know that's getting ready to die, or you can end up saving it and wait till they die and use it then to actually bring them back from the dead. Summon Demon, you've got your Imp, you've got your Voidwalker, you've got your Fell Hunter, and you've got your Succubus. Fell Hunter is going to be your main pet, and for one reason and one reason only. Shadow Bite has had a change. Bites the enemy, causing 3,801 shadow damage. Damage increased by 50% for each of the Master's Affliction damage over time effects on the target. So, this is where you're going to want to go. Imp is going to be kind of the same aspect. It's going to do increased damage depending on, for destruction, I should say. It's going to be the pet of choice for destruction, and the reason for that is because if you have Immolate on the target, its Firebolt does additional damage. Just something to think about, but you do want to have your Fell Hunter out. It is a lot of additional damage. As you can see, Shadow Bite, 3,800 damage isn't a lot out of a pet, but when you've got 4 dots up and it's 200% more, it gets a little bit, it does some pretty decent damage. So with that, summon Doomguard. This is your main single target 3-minute cooldown. It's going to summon the Doomguard like normally on live. It costs 1 soul shard, and it's going to stay up for 25 seconds to assault your target. Really does nice damage. It's very good to see this on a 3-minute cooldown in comparison to what it was, but this is your main damaging cooldown. This is your baseline damage cooldown. AoE situations, you've got the Infernal still, 3-minute cooldown, and it's going to drop the Infernal down in the target area and stunning all enemies for 2 seconds. Infernal will then do strong AoE damage over the next 25 seconds. So if you've got 3 or more targets in a certain boss fight, Infernal is more than likely going to take the place of where Doomguard would. Unending Breath just allows you to breathe underwater, but it also now increases your swim speed by 20%. Nice little perk. Unending Resolve is going to be your main defensive, hardens your skin, reducing all damage you take by 40% and granting immunity to interrupt and silence effects for 8 seconds. Unstable Affliction. This is your bread and butter piece. This is where you're going to mainly spend your soul shards. It's really nice to end up having this. It does an insane amount of damage, but what's it going to do? It flicks the target with shadow damage, heavy shadow damage over 6.7 seconds. I don't like throwing out the numbers all that often, guys, just because these change base to base. But it does a huge amount of shadow damage over 6.7 seconds. Multiple casts accumulate increased damage. So as you can see, let me get a couple soul shards built up here just real quick. Okay, so we've got 2 up. I'm going to cast the first one real quick here, and you'll see where it lines up. Boom, 13,000, and then I'll cast it again, and you'll see it just jumps up. Now this is every 1.7 seconds. I've had this thing to where it's been doing close to 75,000 every 1.7 seconds. It is an insane amount of damage once you pull it up and you get it, and it's great. You can either cast it out and maintain that straight damage and keep the damage up from your pet itself, or if you're needing it for a burst situation, you can actually end up saving it for that burst time, pull up some shards, and then you can pop them when you've got it. A good fight to think about is Odin after you end up getting the Valkyr form. You can save them, get these unstable afflictions all prepped up and ready to go, and you'll throw them out there, and next thing you know, you'll be just absolutely wrecking shit. Works great. Mastery, Potent Afflictions, still going to increase the damage done by Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, and Unstable Affliction by 65%, so your dots are going to get a good improvement. Secrets of the Necrolite. Your Drain Life is massively empowered, dealing 200% increased damage, but not healing. So you're getting additional damage out of that. This is just a general passive. Soul Leech. All single target damage done by you and your minions grant you and your pet shadowy shields that absorb 10% of the damage dealt up to 20% of maximum health. Very nice to end up seeing this as it adds more survivability onto this class. You really, unless you absolutely stand in a bunch of stuff, are going to more than likely be the last person to die in any situation unless the boss trains you because you're on top of the meters. Nothing really too spectacular with this. A lot of it's stuff we've seen before. The change with Unstable Affliction's pretty awesome. The Mastery is the same. Secrets of the Necrolite. Even though Drain Life is massively empowered, dealing 200% increased damage but not healing, you gotta realize you're already getting 200% of the healing from the damage done already. So that increased damage is by far turning into more healing for you. Very good survivability class. Let's go ahead and move on to the talents. So what you see here is actually what I found to be the best in a single target situation and multi-dot situation. As for full-blown AoE, there's a few that could end up changing, but if you're doing a good multi-dot strategy, this works out pretty well, and it also works out well in a single target. But let's go ahead and go over them anyways. 15 haunt, 1.25 second cast, 15 second cooldown. This is not the haunt that you are used to. A ghostly soul haunts the target, dealing a decent amount of shadow damage. If the target dies within 15 seconds, haunt's cooldown is reset. If you're needing some burst, this will end up helping out, but it doesn't pay off unless everything's dying too quickly. Then this would be the way to go. Writhe and Agony, though, Agony's damage may now ramp up twice as high. So instead of ramping up to the usual 10 that we know, it'll actually ramp up to 20. And as long as you keep it there, this is a huge increase in damage. Drain Soul, as mentioned in the abilities, it will replace Drain Life and drains the target's soul, causing an additional amount of damage. Now, mind you, it's 79,212. What we are looking at, Drain Life does 52,000, so it's not a whole hell of a lot. Now, when we look at this, alright, it's going to do additional damage over that 5 seconds, but they only healing you for 100% of the damage done. If the target does die, though, you do generate 1 soul shard. Didn't have a problem with soul shards to begin with, so this may be something to end up maybe playing with if you're going to be killing a lot of additional adds. Contagion, Unstable Affliction also increases all damage you deal to the target by 15%. Yeah, I mean, Unstable Affliction, great damage for one, and to end up getting an increased 15%, this is just going to help those burst periods if you're building up to them. Or as I said before, you can slowly cast these out and just keep a good solid damage running across. But if you've got an ad that you got to burn down or something, again, 15%, that's going to help out. You're going to be pooled up for that anyways. Really nice to end up seeing this. Absolute Corruption. Passive. Corruption is now permanent and deals 25% increased damage. Duration reduced to 60 seconds against players. This plays nicely. Little on the boring side. You know, it's one less dot to actually have to control because it stays up. And it does do increased damage. Now, where I see this thing used best is going to be on heavy AoE situations. You'll toss out your seed and it'll blow up, and then you don't have to worry about reapplying Corruption anymore. And it's going to do 25% increased damage. Works out good. Mana Tap. This is a neat ability. I tested it a few times, and it just made the rotation feel clunky. It was keeping my dots up, multi-dotting already, felt alright, but what you're going to do is consume 40% of your current mana to grant 10% increased damage for 20 seconds. Now what you're looking at is hitting this thing, and then right off the bat, you're going to switch and hit your life tap to end up, you know, bringing your mana back up. But for 10% increased damage for 20 seconds, this is going to be more of your sustained damage. It's going to work alright, and it's something else to end up, you know, managing if you really wanted to. This is 15% damage, and you can keep this up most of the time. You can actually have this one up 100% of the time. So it's really a gameplay situational choice. Do you want to mana tap, or do you want to end up going Unstable Affliction, or do you want to just make it stupid easy? That's, you know, just the gameplay situation on there. And then level 45, you got Demon Skin. Your Soul Leech absorption now passively recharges at a rate of 1% and maximum health every 1 second, and may now absorb up to 20% of your maximum health. Before, it's usually only 10%, so if you saw the Soul Leech at 20%, it's normally 10, guys. So this here is just basically, as you can see, I've got a shield built up. It's 20% of my health because I'm just sitting here passive with it. Just a nice buffer on top of your health already. 475k, so I mean, this is going to absorb what, like 75,000 roughly? Just general thought. So it's a nice pad to end up having on top of there, and then your damage will actually recharge it through Soul Leech, and just helps out a ton. Mortal Coil still here though. It's instant, 45-second cooldown, horrifies the enemy target into fleeing, incapacitating them for 3 seconds, and healing you for 11% of your maximum health. Works basically the same as what's on live. Howl of Terror, let loose a terrifying howl, causing 5 enemies within 10 yards to flee in fear, disorienting them for 20 seconds. Damage may cancel the effect. With this one here, I didn't have a problem tanking everything in the area, so I didn't need to make him run away. That was just my thought. I mean, I had no situational problems with pulling everything around and surviving. Siphon Life. This is another reason why I didn't have a problem, because this is a huge hit and dot. It's instant, siphons a target's life essence, dealing almost 50,000 damage over 15 seconds and healing you for 100% of the damage it deals. Great heals out of this, great damage out of this, and it also ends up improving the damage of your pet, which turns into Soul Leech and survivability and just overall increased damage. And then you've got Contagion, so if you're using Unstable Affliction on top of that, you're just improving your damage all the way through and through. So the Seeds, passive. Seed of Corruption will now consume a Soul Shard if available to embed a Demon Seed in 4 additional nearby enemies. Again, this and Absolute Corruption mixed together are going to be your mass nuke on huge AoE pulls. It's going to be real nice to end up seeing. Soul Harvest, increases your damage and your pet's damage by 20%. Last 10 seconds, increased by 2 seconds for each target afflicted by your agony, up to a maximum of 30 seconds. So this is a timing situation on this, but it is a great cooldown. And what you're looking at is, if you've got a ton of targets that are afflicted by agony, basically you go through and you tab them all, then you'll want to hit Soul Harvest. They've changed this a ton compared to what it was a while back, because this would just end up giving you soul shards and it didn't fit the play. But the damage out of this thing can get pretty nasty, and if you've got this on 10 additional targets, agony 10 targets is what you're going to get for a maximum of 30 seconds. Really? How many times do you see yourself putting agony on 10 targets and then wanting to use a cooldown? It's pretty nuts, but again, this has got some AoE capabilities, and just an overall burst section if you wanted another cooldown for some burst damage. 75, your mobility section, which is weird because the best one out of the whole group, in my opinion, is going to be a shield. Demonic Circle summons a demonic circle for 6 minutes, allowing you to cast it again and teleport to its location and remove all movement slowing effects. Limit 1. Yes, this is now a talent. A lot of people are pissed off about it, but really, it's not too horrible. If you're going to need it, you'll spec into it, but I don't see a lot of situational uses for it in the PvE world as of right now, but it does play in decently. Burning Rush, increase your movement speed by 50%, but also damages you for 4% of your maximum health every 1 second. Movement impairing effects cannot reduce you below 100% of normal movement speed, and it will last until canceled, which is basically the last tick of your health, or whenever you actually click the button again. I have noticed, well, hello there, let's head back in. I have noticed whenever Burning Rush is there, or not there, that it is extremely slow running around. It's super slow getting from point A to point B. But other than that, it's not too terrible. And then you've got Dark Pact, instant 1 minute cooldown, sacrifices 20% of your demon's current health to shield you for 400% of the sacrificed health for 20 seconds. If you have no demon, your health is sacrificed instead, usable while suffering from control impairing effects. So basically, you're going to get a pretty good shield on a 1 minute cooldown. Add some more survivability to this spec. It's really nice. The damage is, in my opinion, is there, and the survivability is top notch with this spec. Level 90, Grimoire's Supremacy. You are able to maintain control over even greater demons indefinitely, allowing you to summon a Doomguard or Infernal as a permanent pet. I hate this talent. I can't express it enough. I hated it when it's on live, even though it was the different name. I don't see the point of taking your 3 minute cooldown and nerfing the shit out of it. I just don't. Yeah, it may be cool, but I just don't see it. There's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, it's great, it's wonderful. No, it's boring. and it takes away your cooldown. It does give you a bit more sustain, but still, it's not that great. That's just my opinion, though. Again, a lot of people are going to like Supremacy. Grimoire of Service, passive, summons a second demon, which fights for you for 25 seconds and deals 100% increased damage. 1.5 minute cooldown, the demon will immediately use one of its special abilities when it's summoned. So, again, you're going to want to bring out the Fell Hunter because it's still going to get the buff off of that, because it's still a Fell Hunter and it's using the same abilities, and Shadow Bite is buffed. And then it's got 100% increased damage. This is the way I went because it gave me another additional cooldown on the Grimoire of Fell Hunter. Good damage for 25 seconds. Lines up perfectly well with your Doomguard, which is out there for 25 seconds. If you end up having it to where you've got your Unstable Affliction up, and you've got Contagion, hey, guess what? Increases all damage you deal to the target by 15%. Doomguard and that other one are considered a spell, so you are going to be getting the additional 15% on top of it. It just all lines up very well. Grimoire Sacrifice. Sacrifice has been gutted. It's been sacrificed itself. Instant 30-second cooldown. Sacrifice your demon to gain demonic power, causing your spells to sometimes deal an additional very weak amount of shadow damage to the target and one other enemy within 8 yards. Lasts 1 hour or until you summon a demon. It's AoE. If you need additional AoE, this is going to be very minimal burst AoE on top of it. That is it. But you get rid of your pet, and I guarantee you your pet's going to do more than that measly 10,000 in a single target situation. Level 100, Soul Effigy. Soul Effigy is awesome, very enjoyable. I love the hell out of this thing, and it creates a Soul Effigy bound to the target, which is attackable only by you. 40% of all damage taken by the effigy is duplicated on the original target. So what you're looking at is multi-dot your target, and then you're going to cast Soul Effigy. And mind you, this is not as quick as I would normally end up doing it, because I'm doing it all by mouse. And then you can dot it. And then you're just going to work on keeping your dots up. And then fill in a little bit with Drain Soul. You're ready to recast. That's the basis of Effigy. It's kind of like Mage's Prismatic Crystal, except it's constantly up for the full duration. Alright, it's going to last 10 minutes, so I don't know any fight that lasts longer than 10 minutes that you're going to do. And it's going to stay up that full duration and just cause all this additional damage. Now what you can end up doing with this is not only are you going to do extra damage to that single target, but you're also going to end up having an additional agony up, which is going to help your soul shards ramp like crazy, and it just helps out a ton. I really enjoyed playing with this because I love the multi-dot aspect, and it played very nicely. Now we'll go on to Phantom Singularity. It's instant, 1 minute cooldown. Places a Phantom Singularity above the target, which consumes the life of all enemies. Of all enemies within 25 yards, dealing decent damage over 13.3 seconds, healing you for 30% of the damage done. This is all AoE yet again, and we'll go ahead and toss this one out there so you can see it. It looks pretty decent, as you can see, and it just does a little bit of damage over time. Again, AoE situations, if you're having to do a decent amount, and this is going to help out. This is also great for if you're doing mass pulls, even though Soul Effigy, when I had it up, it was the same difference. I mean, I had Soul Effigy up and it played out very nicely for killing like silver elites and stuff out in the real world. Phantom Singularity, if you really need to pull more targets, you can end up using this one, and it's just going to make sure that you end up surviving, but I had no problem pulling everything with what I had already. And then Soul Conduit, passive. Every soul shard you spend has a 20% chance to be refunded. This is nice. It helps with Unstable Affliction, and it's fairly simple to end up using. You'll just see more damage through Unstable Affliction because you'll have, more soul shards refunded than anything else. But I believe Soul Effigy actually produced more soul shards in my testing than Soul Conduit did, just because of having that additional dot target and having this thing do damage every second or every 1.7 seconds. I mean, it did really nice on getting that taken care of. So that's going to be it for the talents. We're going to go ahead and move on to the actual artifact. Sexy, sexy. So what are we looking at here? It's the Dead Wind Harvester. And as you can see, the main model of it actually looks really damn good, and it only gets better. So here we are. And then you've got the green one, which some of these are laid out, some of them are up and down. It's just the way that Blizzard is. They'll get it fixed here soon because this is still beta. There's the green one, then you've got the purple and the red, and then Hand of the Afflicted. Oh, buddy. We'll go on to Soul Siphon, but we'll let it spin around a bit more. And this one is probably by far one of my favorites, just because you get the whole Grim Reaper experience. And if you take a look, this thing is awesome. Love it. Death's Hand, yeah. PvP is definitely a must on the Affliction. All these skins are absolutely sick looking. I enjoy this model quite a bit. And I'm going to let it spin around just a bit more so you can get a real good look at this PvP model. Looks more like an axe and a scythe. But each one looks really good, guys. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to the traits. So here we are looking at the traits, and like mentioned before, Reap Souls is your main ability that you end up getting. And it's going to consume all the tormented souls collected by Oath of Lash, increasing your damage by 10% and doubling the effects of all of your other traits for 5 seconds per soul consumed. You gain these by killing targets, and then it just randomly pops them up. So these souls, they build up, they'll build up to 12, so you can get a full minute on this duration. And every one of these traits will actually be doubled depending on where you have them unlocked. Real nice ability. So your very first one increases shadow damage by 2%. Real nice piece. This is what you get as soon as you get the ability unlocked. Then we'll go up here. Seeds of Doom. Rank 0 of 3. Increases damage dealt when Seed of Corruption explodes by 5, 10, or 15%. Inimitable Agony. Increases damage dealt by Agony by 4, 8, or 12%. Really nice. Top damaging ability, getting a little more damage on top. Shadows of the Flesh, rank 0 of 3. Increases the amount absorbed by Soul Leech by 1, 2, or 3%. Alright. Harvester of Souls, rank 0 of 1. Each time Corruption deals damage, has a 15% chance to deal 6,500 shadow damage to the target and heal you for 100% of the damage dealt. Hey, an additional amount, 15% chance of doing 6,500 additional damage, that'll ramp up quite quickly, especially in AoE situations when you've got Seed of Corruption on a lot of different targets. Fatal Echoes. When Unstable Affliction expires, it has a 6% chance to reapply itself. 6% seems pretty low, but this is pretty awesome. Just having an additional Unstable Affliction. Now, I do know when I tested this in alpha, it only did a single version. It did not do, if you ramp this thing up to a mass amount, it was not resetting it then. I don't know if they've since changed it. But if they did, you're going to have more of a reason to actually pull shards and ramp Unstable Affliction through the roof. Drain to a Husk, rank 0 of 3. Increased damage dealt by Drain Life by 2, 4, or 6%. Inherently Unstable, rank 1 of 3. Increases the critical strike chance of Unstable Affliction by 2, 4, or 6%. Huge damage out of this because this is yet again another one of your main damaging abilities. Sweet Souls, your Hellstone heals you for an additional 50% of your maximum health. Any party or raid member using a Hellstone also heals you for the amount they were healed. Again, you literally should never die as a Warlock except for being the last person unless the boss hits you right between the eyes. There's a lot of additional healing and survivability in this spec. Perdition, normally it would be 1 of 3, or 0 of 3 I should say. Increases critical strike damage dealt by Agony, Corruption, Drain Life, and Unstable Affliction by 3, 6, or 10%. They've kind of gone from that 9% into the 10% on almost all abilities. But I do have an item that's actually giving me an increased ranking. Second Golden Dragon, Wrath of Consumption, rank 0 of 1. After you kill a target, your damage over time effects deal 2% increased damage for the next 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So you can get a total, if you're doing a lot of trash killing, you can get a total of 10% increased damage. Again, this is great for the multi-dot aspect and the fact that if you're just non-stop pulling and killing stuff, this is going to keep you ramped up and out of control. Hideous Corruption, rank 0-3, increased damage dealt by corruption by 4, 8, or 12%. Nice piece. Shadowy Incantations, rank 0-3, increases shadow damage you deal by 1, 2, or 3%. Always good to have additional shadow damage. Soul Flame, last Golden Dragon here, rank 0-1. When you kill a target, its soul bursts into flames, dealing 14,900, very little shadow flame damage to all nearby targets. Long Dark Night of the Soul, increases healing you receive from drain life by 10, 20, or 30%. Compound Interest, each time Agony and Corruption deal damage, they have a 10% chance to increase damage dealt by your next Unstable Affliction by 15%. So yeah. Basically, if you've got the Agony and Corruption up, they are going to make it to where Unstable Affliction gets buffed. Real good damage, and again, all of this is based on your dots, and this spec is probably going to really take off once it gets further on into the tier. I enjoy it, and with this, let's go ahead and talk about the actual gameplay. The Affliction Warlock is awesome in almost every situation. It does have a little bit of baseline AoE now through Seed of Corruption, just for the simple fact that it spreads corruption to every single target, and then you can just multi-dot like crazy. If you enjoy this gameplay, your multi-dotting is going to be absolutely insane in almost every level. The main thing you want to be concerned about, though, is make sure you keep your Agony up. Agony is going to be one of your main damage dealers, and if you let it fall off, you're just looking at all that additional time lost. It's basically 40 seconds to get this thing ramped up completely to full, and then once it's full, it's pretty solid. It is a little less than 40 seconds, I'm just rounding up, guys, but you do want to make sure you're maintaining your Agony in all situations because of how much damage it really does. Then you've got Corruption. Corruption's easy to apply in an AoE situation, as you just toss out Seed of Corruption, and it's going to toss Corruption on every single target within X amount of range. Not too bad, it works out really good as long as they're within the pull range. So what are we looking at? That is going to be your AoE situation. Single target. The way that I was going with this, I also had Siphon Life, so I was keeping Siphon Life up on everything too. But in a single target rotation, let's say boss fight, what are we looking at doing? Okay, if you've got the base 1 soul shard that you've got, you're obviously looking at getting some soul shards ramped up before you do anything. So go into your rotation, get your dots up, make sure you're starting off with Agony because, again, it is your main priority. It's also going to be the main way that you're going to get your soul shards. In fact, it's the only way. So toss that out, and then if you decided that you're going to go with Soul Effigy, make sure Soul Effigy is on the top of your priority list after you get the boss dotted to get it dotted and maintain your dots on both. Very simple gameplay in that department, and then you're going to want to feed back onto the boss himself. One thing you may want to end up concerning yourself with when it comes down to an actual raid situations, make sure that you do not have your pet on assist. Make sure that it is on passive and you are actually commanding it to attack the target. Otherwise, you'll have your pet running back and forth between the boss and your effigy, losing damage. Can't say that enough. It is a huge loss in damage to watch that pet just run back and forth. Now, with this being said, you won't drain life a whole hell of a lot. You'll use it as a filler, but you'll generally not even get a full channel off on this thing most of the time, because you'll be going back into your dots and making sure that they stay up. Again, if you're doing it at about the 25% mark through the actual cooldown, you're going to get it back up, and you're also going to maintain that dot quite well. Not a whole lot has changed there. So what else are we looking at in this situation? Once you actually get your soul shards prepped up and you're getting close to capping them, this is when you're going to want to end up using your Doom Guard, and then if you went Grimoire, go Grimoire Fell Hunter to get the additional damage, and then toss your Unstable Affliction up, because you're going to get that additional 15% on top of the rest of the damage that you're doing with Doomguard and then your Grimoire Fell Hunter, those are going to get the 15% also because they are considered spells from you. Real decent damage increase. Just remember this as you end up going. It's good to pull these unstable affliction shards. Real nice to end up getting them going, and as you can see, your shards build up so fast that you can actually keep this up constantly, and usually I was able to keep at least a 2 unstable affliction point unstable affliction dot up at each time. Plays out extremely well. If you've played Affliction before, you understand this very easily. If you haven't, this might be a little on the confusing side. But really, you're just looking at keeping these soul shards up. You want to keep your soul shards up. You want to make sure that you've always, if you've got contagion or something that's giving you a buff, you do want to try and keep unstable affliction up and time it out just right. If you get a couple additional soul shards, then yeah, obviously you're going to want to put them up too. But the damage out of this thing felt really solid. It felt great. Just make sure that you're keeping your dots up on your targets. Now, whether that's going to be just the boss, or if you go soul effigy, or if you've made it to where it's super basic and you're going drain life or drain soul, sorry. There's a lot of different ways that you can play this. If you enjoy the channeling aspect of it with drain soul, you can go that route. If you enjoy the dot version, you can go soul effigy and just get the increased ramping damage, and you are going to progressively jump up in damage with this spec. Extremely fun. Enjoyed the hell out of it. I don't see where a lot of people are saying, oh, it sucks, but I really enjoyed playing this yet again. And it's possible that I do end up playing a Warlock on live quite frequently. Normally Demonology, just because I love the rotation of the live Demonology. I may end up actually swapping over to Affliction instead of doing Demonology. But I do like Legion's Demonology. So Warlock has got me in a conundrum right now of where I want to end up speccing my Warlock when I go live. With that, let's go ahead and head right on over to the logs to see where the damage is coming from. So here you have it. Here's the logs, and you can see it does have a ramp up period, definitely. And this is the Wrath of Ashara, which is the last boss in the Eye of Ashara instance. And as you can see, it just ramps and ramps and gets way higher as you proceed and go through. The blue right here and right around 40 is where you're going to actually see Agony really start to shine, because this is where you're going to be capping off and getting your most damage. Again, it takes a long time, that 40 seconds to get it ramped all the way up, but once it's up there, it is up there, and the damage is just huge. So what do we have? Unstable Affliction. Obviously your top, because it is considered your main nuke and your main soul shard user. Then you've got Agony, which is, again, it ramps up. It takes a while to go, and if you end up looking at the max to min, the minimum tick was 1,380. The maximum was 17,000, and that was just on the normal ticks. The critical ticks were much, much higher. All in all, this is a huge amount of damage that you can see in here. And then you've got Soul Effigy, and this thing is, again, like I said, this is a huge amount of damage that you can get out of this and have the additional fun of actually multi-dotting on a single target fight. Works out really well, and it also, with Agony being up on it, it produces a very, very good amount of additional... It just does a good additional amount of soul shard generation. It's just really nice to end up seeing it. Siphon Life, for doing all this additional damage, it did 321,000 damage, but 100% of that would also be healing back if I needed it. Really nice to end up seeing it. Siphon Life, if you can see where are we at, that's going to be the purple, and it's just progressively in there. It's not a whole hell of a lot. And then you've got Doombolt, which was actually from our Doomguard. What's the other one I was looking for? Soul Effigy. The nice light green, nope, that's Doombolt right here. Soul Effigy, nice and paced all the way through and through. And again, it's just a good solid addition to damage because all your dots are on it, and it's only going to get better as you get more mastery, haste, whatever ends up affecting this the best. Corruption, Still, fairly of the weaker of the 3 dots, obviously, or 4 dots now in this situation. And the 4 dots that you've got, it is the weaker of them. And it's even more so now on the bottom of the priority list due to the fact that it does not generate soul shards. It still does a very decent amount of damage, but as you can see, it's very little in the amount that you produce. Doom Bolt from your Doom Guard. Still, again, it's a very nice cooldown on a 3-minute cooldown. Shadow Bite, huge amounts of damage out of that guy. The melee, and then you've got right here the Shadow Bite and everything. This is actually going to be from the Grimoire pet, so 10% damage just from your cooldowns. And again, this one would be back up in another 40 seconds from the fight, so you'd be able to use it yet again. Works out nice. And then Drain Life, only cast it 5 times the whole entire time we fought. And it hit twice each time we did it. So this is going to be it, guys. And if you did enjoy this, if you got a little bit out of this, I hope you know, the main thing about my videos is the fact that you enjoy. And with that, thanks for watching.